Good afternoon. My name is Tatiana Smirnova, and I am a Skolkovo Institute of Science and Technology second year master's student. I prepared this video as a description of my final project for the course Learning How to Learn Python Online. This is an absolutely fascinating course since it employs an inverted classroom concept. So basically, students act as teachers, so we prepare different topics to talk about and present them to our fellows so they can learn from us, they can provide feedback, they can express what they think about this project, and so on. So during this Python class, my final project was to describe how you should use documentation and testing in Python. So for this quite simple project, I created a simple program, a simple calculator that can add, subtract, multiply, and divide using different functions. So we have add, subtract, multiply, divide, a piece of code that takes input from the user, and the part that does calculations. So we can see how it works. So you enter your choice.
Okay, so let's see how this program is working. So first of all, you select an operation. You enter first number, you enter second number, and you have the results. So I've created the documentation for this project in a GitHub repository, and we can see it right here. So here we have our source code, calculator.py, and the main file in the Python documentation is a README file, which we can take a look at. So here we have comments describing what should be present in the README file and associated parts of it. So first of all, README file should contain a few lines explaining the purpose of the project which we have. Then we should have installed section and to-do section, which are all implemented. Next, we should have a couple of files, additional files, license and changelog, which we also have in our repository, license and changelog. License file describes the license under which you distribute your software, and changelog file records any changes that you accomplish. Okay. Next, if you want to render documentation to the internet, you can use a very simple REST rendering web interface. So we just open the cell, we copy everything that we have. I used all the annotations that are present in the specific documentation where Python creators explain what symbols you should use to render your documentation to HTML, and we have a beautiful doc in the internet. It's essentially the same that we have in our HTML file, just more suitable for internet use. Okay. So this is quite simple. If you want to document your software, and you should actually document your software for it to be easier for you to use by other developers, you can create a separate TXT files which you can store in your repository, or you can create an HTML documentation which will be stored in the internet. And the next part of my project was to describe some testing rules, testing good behaviors that you should use when you create your Python projects. So the main tool for testing your projects is Assert, and Python already has different types of assertions that you can use to test your pieces of code. And you, of course, can use base assert, which allows you to write your own conditions, but I think the majority of software is okay just with these assertions. So for example, I created to test this calculator project. I created specific class, my test, and defined different testing functions to test every functions of my calculator. Right now, all of them are fine. So if we would run it in a testing suite, we would see that it has no mistake. If, for example, we had something wrong, we would see an error, and it will say in which line we have an error, which assertion went wrong. So which one we should replace with a good one. And of course, testing works just as any other functions, just as any other class. So for example, imagine that we had a calculator as a class, not as a set of functions. As a class that has only one function, add, addition, and we can easily create a new object right in the testing module, which is very useful. So you do not need to invade your code with new objects. You can just place it into testing and run it just as before. So I've just described the basic rules of thumb, how you create documentation for your Python software and how you develop testing suites for your code. So this was the final project, examples of documentation and testing for my class, Learning How to Learn Python Online. Thank you for your attention.